All right, mathletes, it's A4 long division. Before we start talking about long division, it's not your elementary long division that we'll be doing in college algebra, but it's going to be long division with polynomials. So I think the best thing to do is build a base of what we know with long division with the elementary sense and use that same philosophy and ideas and structure and apply it to a higher level here with polynomials. So remember, if we wanted to divide 1950 by 7, this is how we set it up. We'd ask ourselves, 7 would go into 19 twice. 2 times 7 is 14, and I subtract that. 19 minus 14, I'm going to get 5, and then I drop down my next term and get a 5 there. 7 goes into 55 7 times. Now 7 times 7 is 49. Subtract that, and I get a 6. Drop down my next term, and I get a 0. And 7 goes into 60 8 times. 8 times 7 is 56. And I have a remainder 4. If I wanted to keep going, I'd get decimals, but we're going to stop here for the sake of argument. So what we have here is 4 is our remainder. This is our dividend, 1950. Our quotient is 278, and our divisor. So if we put this all together, we should see that our quotient times our divisor. So our quotient is 278 multiplied by 7 plus 4 is going to equal 1950. Okay? So using this same structure, we're going to apply it to polynomials. So let's look at our first example here. Our divisor is x plus 2. Our dividend is 4x cubed minus 3x squared plus x plus 1. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I cover up that and I just think about x. And I say x times what is 4x cubed? Or how many times does x go into that? Well, I can do 4x squared because 4x squared times x is 4x cubed. So now I do think of my plus 2 when I multiply back through here. So 4x squared plus x is 4x cubed. 4x squared times 2, and I get plus 8x squared. Remember, when we did this before, we had to subtract. So to subtract, I changed the signs of both of them. Okay. Now from here, 4x cubed minus 4x cubed, that should be 0. If you don't get 0 here, you've done something wrong. Here I get negative 3x squared minus 8x squared. I get a negative 11x squared. Drop down my next term, plus x. Again, I'm going to kind of think about covering up my 2, and I say x times what is a negative 11x squared? Well, that's negative 11x. So then I no longer blank this out, and I multiply a negative 11x through times x, and I get negative 11x squared. Negative 11x times 2, and I get negative 22x. Because I'm subtracting, I change the signs on both of them, and I add them up now. So this again goes to 0, and I have x plus 22x, and I'm going to get 23x. At this point, I drop down my next term, plus 1, cover up my 2. X times what is 23x? That's plus 23. Then I multiply it through, and I get 23 times x is 23x. 23 times 2 is going to be plus 46. Remembering I'm subtracting, so I'm going to change the signs on both of them. And this should always go to 0. and 1 minus 46 is a negative 45. So there's my remainder. What this is going to be useful for is I can help find factors. If I get a remainder of 0, I know that x plus 2 is a factor. But I can also rewrite my dividend by doing x plus 2 times the quantity 4x squared minus 11x plus 23. And then I can minus 45. That is equal to 4x cubed minus 3x squared plus x plus 1, and we can have it there. Very similar to how we did it here with our quotient times our divisor plus our remainder equals our dividend. All right, on number 2 here, we're going to divide x squared plus 1, and we're going to divide that by 5x to the 4th. And so here, notice that we have a 4th degree and we have no 3rd degree here. So when we are writing this, we're going to want to put a 0 placeholder for our x cubed term, and then minus x squared plus x minus 2. Anytime we don't have the next term present, we're going to want to add a 0 placeholder. That'll help us organize our work as we're doing the division here. So first thing I do is, again, I kind of cover up my plus 2, and I think x squared times what is 5x to the 4th, and that's going to be 5x squared. So after I take that away, I multiply that through. 5x squared times x squared is 5x to the 4th. And 5x squared times 2 is 10x squared. So because it's a 10x squared, I'm going to line it up here underneath my x squared term. Now, remember, because I'm subtracting, I'm changing the signs on both terms. Here, this is going to go to 0 as it should. We didn't get any x cubed terms, so this minus 0, we get 0 again. Now my x squared term, I have a negative x squared minus 10x squared. I'm going to get a negative 11x squared. Bring down my next term. Okay, so then I ask myself, x squared times what is a negative 11x, just thinking about my leading term, and I get negative 11. Negative 11 times x squared is negative 11x squared. Negative 11 times 2 is negative 22. So at this point, it's going to be best if I write this negative 22 under my coefficients here in 2, and I'm going to have to drop down this negative 2 from here. So remember, because I am subtracting these, I'm going to change my signs here. And I'm going to get, this goes to 0, this is x, and negative 2 plus 22, I get a plus 20. This is my remainder. All right, so that's example number 2. Example number 3, I'm going to divide 3x to the 4th minus 6x cubed. I don't have a squared term, so I'm going to do a plus 0x, and then a minus 5x plus 10, and I'm going to divide it by x minus 2. So just looking at my leading term there, x goes into 3x to the 4th. 3x to the 3rd time. I multiply it through, and I get 3x to the 4th minus 6x cubed. Subtract, so I'm changing the signs on both of them. This goes to 0, and this goes to 0. So drop this down, another 0, and then I'm already to a minus 5x, and then a plus 10 left as my next. So Then x minus 2. X goes into negative 5x. Negative 5 times. Negative 5 multiplied through. It's negative 5x plus 10. Remembering that I am subtracting here, so I change my signs. And notice I get a remainder of 0. This is really powerful because that tells me, therefore, these are two terms. That if I do x minus 2 times the quantity 3x cubed minus 5, I'll get the fourth degree polynomial 3x to the fourth minus 6x cubed minus 5x plus 10. That's our notes on long division of polynomials. Make sure you highlight any questions and bring in class tomorrow.